Welcome back, everyone. I'm Dorothea Howard, the host of Let's Talk Sarcoidosis. But today, I have a really special family on because we want to talk about another rare disease. The rare disease is sarcoma, and this is Sarcoma Awareness Month. So I want to introduce you to the Brooks family. We have Joseph, little Miss Sarah, and Kenyatta Brooks. So thank you guys so much for coming on the show for bringing awareness to sarcoma.
Thank you.
Hi, little Sarah.
Hi.
So how you feeling today?
Jesus helped my body, and he healed it too when I had cancer.
Oh, yes, he did, because you're beautiful right now, that's for sure. So I'm going to ask some questions so we can help some viewers out there about this disease, okay? All right, so whoever wants to answer, whether it's mom or dad, what type of cancer does Sarah or did Sarah have?
She had what's called embryonal rhabdomyosarcoma, which actually starts in the womb.
And how rare is this cancer, Kenyatta?
At the time of Sarah's diagnosis, it was only 1%, and that's in children, and the children's gender is males. So it was even more rare for Sarah because she was a female.
So how did you know that Sarah was sick?
Well, for a long time, actually 8 months, we kept taking Sarah to the doctor because she would have small things like fevers,
No.
diaper rashes, runny nose, cough, congestion, and then she would have a bleed. Sometimes she would bleed. It must have happened maybe 4 or 5 times before she was diagnosed. And we took her to several doctors, including the hospital, including urgent care, and including her primary care physician. And on June 13th of 2013, we took her in with a diagnosis. On June 12th, we actually Googled the diagnosis with her symptoms, and they all matched up with what's called sarcoma boy type, which is a type of cancer that she had, but her specifically was embryonal. And when we went in, they basically, they thought basically I was in postpartum depression, and that Sarah looked healthy. She was on her growth chart. The only thing different that she was doing was she had stopped eating, and she would only drink her bottle. That's a picture of Sarah there, the day that I took her in.
Okay. And how old was Sarah then
She
when
was
you first
13
took her?
months on that picture.
13 months, geez. Okay. Wow. Now, I know you did take her to the doctors, but it wasn't found then through routine checkup, right?
No.
It sounds like you actually found what it was that was wrong with her.
That's what Johns Hopkins said. They said that we diagnosed Sarah and that they had never had a family who could follow the cancer from birth all the way until it was diagnosed. All of her symptoms I had it documented, and I was very concerned. And of course, I was sick and underweight because I wasn't eating or sleeping. I was driving my family crazy.
Right.
They actually thought I was maybe, verge of nervous breakdown. Because when you have a sick child and you know, but I knew what God was showing me, and he was very clear in what he was showing me. Nobody wants their child to be sick.
No, absolutely not. And I mean, you have every right to be, having that verge of a breakdown when it's your child, that's your loved one. So with that being said, did Sarah have to have surgery to have that lump removed?
She did. She actually had tumors.
Okay.
And she had surgery twice. She had surgery on July 3rd and July 12th.
So did
2013.
Did Sarah have to undergo chemotherapy? Joseph?
Yes, we did. We did 12 months of chemotherapy. Um, it was a stretch, along with all the molested shots, and
Right.
we had from blood transfusions to platelets and the whole 9 yards. I mean, it was definitely a tour for the 12 months. We just had no idea.
Right.
We were a new family to this, and we had no idea just what was in store for us. But we made it through. And then the doctors at Johns Hopkins sit down and they give you a roadmap, and they walk you through it, and then we just started the process.
Right. And well, I would figure that she did have to be hospitalized. So what was that like, Sarah, being hospitalized, and how long was she hospitalized?
Well, we did chemo weekly,
Mm-hmm.
and my husband actually took charge of the chemo treatments. So he would drive her in every week. And then every third week, we would have to be hospitalized for chemo for a couple days. I mean, we'd have to go in for Lunesta injections. My husband would in turn stay overnight with Sarah just to make sure that, it was hard for him.
Right.
For me, it was more of a relief that now we can get treatment and my baby can get some help. Whereas for Joe, it was still just dealing with the process that it was even real.
Right.
And for me, I lived with it for 8 months. So, we got through it. But we
Yeah.
were hospitalized, aside from the chemo, a few times for illnesses. But it was a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah.
I still, as we sit here, when you're talking about just her first treatment, as we sit here, I can still see the first drip of chemo go through just through the tube, and just wondering, sitting there thinking, how's this going to affect her? All kind of thoughts just go through your head, because virtually she was untouched up until that point.
Right.
And we started chemo at around 9 o'clock at night when we stayed overnight, 8 o'clock or so. And the first drip, the first visit, the first everything, as I watched it go into her port, I just thought, I just didn't know what to expect. It's the unknown of all of it. It takes a little embracing to,
Right.
just to be able to just endure what's next, because you don't know how she's going to respond and where you kind of go from there. But
And that's just the thing about rare diseases. It's a lot of times it's not enough awareness, it's not enough attention.
Correct.
So I really do appreciate you guys taking time out of your schedule to be here to show people what it is that you guys gone through. So let's talk about family. Because first of all, you're a beautiful family.
Thank you.
And this is just part of the family, because I know you have 2 handsome sons. So
do.
let's talk about family and Sarah's brothers, and what happened when you actually told them that their sister had cancer.
Well, Joseph is our oldest. He's 14 now. At the time, he was 11, right? And
We just turned 11.
yeah, so 9 and 11.
Right.
And so when we were first diagnosed, we figured at some point we definitely had to sit down and talk with them, because eventually someone else was going to tell them, because of social media we live
Right.
in now, and just friends and family. And we didn't want them to go into school and, people would come up to them and say, I'm so sorry to hear about your sister, and we're praying for you, and then be shell-shocked behind those comments. So I think that was another tough part in all of it, because you have to show, as parents, you got to be strong. And we're really discussing this issue before we even call them to the table, and just to sit down and try to, even though we're hurting and it's painful inside, but you still have to remain calm as a parent, and under control and strong, because the attitude in what you bring to this disease means everything. So being positive, being uplifted, God's going to take care of. There's no need for us to worry. He doesn't want us to worry. We're just going to put it in his hands. And that was the approach that we took with the children. And it was definitely one of the most difficult things
Right.
that I had ever had to do as a man is to sit down and tell my children that with just with a really good positive body language and so forth. Because inside, you're sad as a parent, but as as your children, you have to be the rock. You got to be strong and doing so. And so that was the approach that we took. And not to say that as the process went on, it didn't get to them some along the way. But in the very beginning, that's how we sat down and we spoke to our children and let them know it's going to be okay. We have to go through some things. There might be some changes. And we have to be all supportive of her walk as well.
And we took them along.
I was going to say now, I mean, I can tell you guys are like a serious, strong, have faith, family, and a lot of people, it affects them. When you have someone that's ill and you're going through and have a lot of stress. So how did it affect your family? I'm sure it did. So can you share with the viewers of how Sarah being diagnosed with cancer affected your family in general?
Well, for our immediate family, I'll speak on them first. My wife she's I always say she's the backbone because she's in the moment. She is finding out answers. She's getting things done. She's taking care of her family. She's taking care of our daughter, and so she was strong in that whole facet. It was me. I was the big crybaby. It affected me probably the worst. I remember being in the shower just crying, and she said, "Are you in there crying?"
Oh,
and
at least you're honest about it.
Yeah, I was like, "Yeah," but I'm all right. I'll be out in a minute.
Because sometimes for the water, right?
Right. Sometimes, because sometimes, you even as a man, you got to find in a hole somewhere. You got to cry and get over it,
right, and
just get back out and put your Superman cape back on.
That's right.
And go back to business. And that's what we did. Our sons, at times, my son, we would be at dinner and they would break down or just be frustrated, or they're getting in trouble over little things. I'm like, you can't understand, or you're just thinking that it's just whatever. And you're like, why are you upset? What
Right.
What's going on? And but it's really, they go through it as well.
Sure.
Sometimes as parents, we kind of overlook their little world that they live in, but
Right.
their stresses are stress too. Those things that they're going through with their cis people, coming up with them with numerous of questions.
Wow.
Is their sister, why doesn't she have any hair? Is she a boy? Is she?
People can be so
They
cruel
can be.
sometimes.
Does she have
yeah.
alopecia? Does she have alopecia?
That's so
Yeah.
sad. Yeah.
Or all these different questions. And for for children can be extremely direct.
Sure.
And so for them to be able to handle that, and of course my father and my mother, everybody was concerned, and
Right.
Sarah took front and center on the stage. She was what's going on, daily updates.
So you have a
hourly
great
updates.
support system,
Absolutely.
We had an awesome support system.
which is important.
So Joe took Sarah from July. She was diagnosed the day of Sarcoma Awareness Month, July 1, 2013. So from July through October, he took her weekly, and it burned him out. So we had a host of family and friends who pitched in to take turns to drive her, but he refused to give up the overnight. Although I did end up doing a couple of overnights because he was just burned out.
Right.
I have an aunt who I'm very close with, and we were communicating regularly about this prior to Sarah being diagnosed, and she was like, you just need to calm down. You're just stressed out. You got too much on your plate. And when she found out the day I called her, she hopped on a plane.
Wow.
And came here for a month to help take care of the other
My
children.
goodness. And that's the thing. Caretakers are so important.
Oh, yeah.
Family, friends, because everybody doesn't have to always be family. It could be, you know, friends or colleagues, and that's really important.
That's right.
And on that note, what would you like to share with the viewers, other than what we talked about? Is there anything else that you wanted to share with the viewers?
Hold on, Sarah.
Yes.
Hold on, baby.
I like to share that how important it is to keep the environment happy. And I know it's a tough place to be in, and it's a long road. But no matter what, you got to keep it happy and
Right.
positive. And I think that's important to be able to beat out this thing.
Right.
It's about how does she feel. And the good thing for Sarah, she was a child, so she knew no different. We told her everything along the way. There was no surprises. And if a doctor failed to tell us on a particular day that she was going to get an injection, that day she wouldn't receive one. Because I need to be able to consult with her and say, Sarah,
Right.
today you're getting a shot. Today you're getting lab work. This is what they're going to do to you. And that made Sarah not afraid. We got to tell our kids it's not a secret because they're going to find out.
Yes,
And
they
when they
will.
hear it, it's going to be the monster in the room. So you want them to hear it from your standpoint. It's okay, Bear. It's
That's
nothing.
Little Miss Sarah, can I ask you, how do you feel about everything now? Everything that you've gone through. Can you tell the people that's watching, how do you feel today about what happened to you? How do you feel about everything? Can you tell viewers what it made you feel like inside when you had cancer?
You can ask her to repeat the question. Say it a different way. She wants you to say it a different way.
Okay. Can we tell the audience, how did you feel? Did you feel sad about having cancer? Did you feel nervous about having cancer?
I felt nervous.
Okay. And can you tell why you felt nervous?
Yes,
Why did you feel nervous?
because I didn't want to have it.
Oh. But today you feel really good though, right?
Yes,
Because God healed you.
Is that what you said?
yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm glad you answered that question. Thank you. Now,
on a chair.
okay. I don't know what it is. When it relates to advocating for your child, how important is that?
Well,
Especially as parents.
yeah, that's front and center. I mean, they're a child, and so us being parents and adults, you must advocate for them because one in particular incident that we had in dealing with chemo and the treatments and so forth, she became neutropenic. Um, and being neutropenic, basically, I think she had one white blood cell count
Oh,
left.
my.
It was
down to nothing.
yeah.
Wow, that's scary.
Right. So, with that being said, we rushed her to, we took her to John Hopkins, and you know, she just wasn't herself.
Fever of
And,
106.
yeah, I mean, her lips were blue, and I mean, something was wrong, and that. You know, we were marching for about 6 months or so. Like, you know, we're in the middle of it, and then that happened, and it was like, you know, it just almost pauses you right there. And so when we got there, we found out that's what was happening, and she was hospitalized for a week, about a week, and of course, she had platelets, she had blood, she had a little bit of everything in her liver. Her liver was failing.
Oh my God.
And that was, you know, that's tough to hear for any
Right.
parent, and that's something you don't want to hear. And so again, you're out in no man's land again, because only thing that you can do is pray about it, because it lets you know that you have no real control over anything in this life, and that is for us, for our family, is a source of our strength.
Right.
And so we went through that. They wanted to start having chemo again for her, the next week. And that's where the advocating portion comes in. And I remember, you know, and the physicians there at Johns Hopkins are absolutely amazing. They are. They just are. But us as parents, sometimes we've got to step into.
Yes, yes.
And, you know, the spiritual connection with your child is like no other. And you may not be able to be inside their body, but it's a feeling that you get, that you know through their eyes how they must feel. Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, at that time, the 12-month roadmap, I had to be put on hold for a minute because I said at that point to the doctor, I said, you know, he was, you know, we got everything back up, we're ready to go. We can start with chemo again the next week. And I said to my wife, no, not next week, because her liver is, I mean, it's just getting back to, I don't want this to, you know, ruin what we've just done and what we've just healed her from, just coming out of being neutropenic. So how about we just skip this week or even two, and we'll put that, so to speak, on the back end of the roadmap.
Right.
And they were really against doing that. They really wanted to proceed. But as a parent and advocating, once again, I'm just thinking of her situation. I'm thinking that she has cancer. I'm just thinking further out there. And I think I had recommended or said to the doctor at that time, and I said, well, you know, I'm just thinking of my daughter's organs, really. I mean, her liver was compromised. She's probably not an advocate for a transplant because of her pre-existing condition. I was told that was a little far-fetched and out there, but not really. I think just taking the time and just hold off, you know, 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
Oh, absolutely.
And then he finally just said, you know what, okay. He realized that was coming from a parenting doctor's opinion of parenting. We're going to hold off.
You had to intervene.
I had to intervene.
You know, you had to intervene. It's your child.
I had to. I had to. And you're making real tough life decisions at times. Do we do this or do we not? Do we do this? But you just have got to be comfortable in your decision. And they're not, you know, should we get, ice cream with cake or cake, right? They're easy decisions, you know, that we make every day. These are life decisions that you're making that could affect the scope of her outcome. And so we had to definitely put that on hold that particular time. I'm sure there are some other times. My wife that was probably the one time I advocated on a strong foot down point, but my wife she is the consistent advocator of not just Sarah, but across the board for the other children as well. But definitely in our situation with Sarah, she led, she was the person always advocating, and I was the cheerleader.
Well, let me ask you this: did Sarah have any complications ever from being on chemotherapy?
The one where we were just hospitalized.
Right.
She had about 12 blood transfusions, about 9 platelet infusions.
Yeah.
She had viral infections that would last longer than normal. We had a time when they told us our CAT scan showed metastases, and she explained that to us, and I told her, I tell you what you do.
Right.
You redo it, because I can promise you there's a great error. She is not metastasized. And they redid it. And that doctor, we ended up being really good friends. She said, your faith, it moves me. She said, because tell you that, I didn't flinch.
Right.
I don't believe it. All that she's been through, she's here for a higher purpose.
Right.
You know, she could have died in my womb, but instead she made it.
Yeah.
Things could have happened to her many a time, but they didn't. She's here, and I know he has a higher calling for her to save someone.
How did you protect Sarah in the public? Going through all that and being out in the public, and you know, her immune system is really challenged. So how did you protect her?
Well, you know, during flu season, obviously we're just in
Right.
because she couldn't compromise. You know, obviously she was compromised. And so during flu season, really, we just, you know, we stayed home and stayed inside. We made sure everything was clean, Lysol down, and the other children who are going to school,
Right.
that doesn't, you know, make it any easier because they're going with kids who are struggling with, you know, during flu
Right.
season and so forth, and bringing that stuff back into the home. But just washing your hands, you know, if you're sick, put a
Everywhere,
mask
hand
on.
sanitizer.
Yeah, and the kids
Yeah.
like, why I gotta put a mask on? I'm not sick.
Well, it's important
Like,
for them
yeah,
to
but
know
it was important
what
to
you
them
had
to
to
know.
do to protect her.
Yep, you have
Right.
to. I'm like, we all have to do it.
Constantly cleaning things.
Constantly cleaning.
She never got, people typically get at least one infection in their port. Sarah never got one.
Girl, that was nothing but God.
She never got one infection in her port.
Yeah. So we had to be super clean,
Right.
and that's how. I mean, there's kids there. You know, it was just a blessing that we could just bring her
Right.
home, because a lot of children at Ronald McDonald House that get bone marrow transplants and things like that, they can't even see the light of day. They can't even come outside
Right.
for months, 6 months, 9 months, a year. So the fact that we were able to bring our daughter home and just be under, you know, caution of taking care of her, making sure, like we said, things were clean, and constantly washing our hands and praying.
And I do want to say that sarcoma can affect anyone, even adults.
Okay.
And one of the problems that we found with sarcoma cancer, with an adult having sarcoma cancer, is we had a relative who passed from sarcoma. He had what's called desmoid. It was in his stomach. And for Sarah, she could go to Johns Hopkins and play and go in the playroom and have a good time. But for my cousin, who was a young adult,
Right.
it was hard for them to treat him, because he should be treated in pediatric, and that was hard for him. So one hospital wouldn't treat him. He had to move on to another hospital that would assist him. But it was hard to make it comfortable for him,
Right.
being a young adult.
Well, you know, this is the end of the show, and we really had a lot of great questions to. Yes, I'm gonna let you help me wrap it up. This is a great show for people to understand about other rare diseases,
That's right.
and to help bring awareness and attention.
Correct.
And we know Sarah has a foundation, so people are watching. They can look at the credits at the end of the show and find out all the information about Sarah Kisses. And again, I want to thank people for watching the show. I want you to live your life like little Sarah here, because let me tell you, she is brave for being here. And Sarah, would you like to say something to the viewers before we say goodbye? What would you like to say to the viewers? Would you like to thank them for watching? Tell us what you like to say. Just say it.
Yeah,
Let's see it, because we have to go.
I hope that you'll pray for my Auntie Ebony, because a cop handcuffed her and she was sick.
Okay. Well, you heard the message from little Sarah, and I'd like to thank the beautiful Brooks family for being here today. And as I always say, live your life.
Thank you for watching.
And thanks for watching. You heard Sarah. She said, thanks for watching. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and stay
Thank you.
positive like all the Brooks family. Thanks for
Thank
watching,
you.
and thanks for being here, guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.